moving on. We've already been recording for an hour, though the show itself technically is only 50 minutes right now, because there was the first 10 minutes. But what else do we have to talk about?
Oh my gosh. I I've been wanting to write something. Just dealing with all of the accusations of sexual misconduct. uh, because I haven't really opined much about that lately,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sort of reading and watching and just observing. Um, it's funny to me that the people who wanted, to believe every accusation that came out of Hollywood suddenly don't want to believe an accusation about, a politician
Mm-hmm.
within their own party. And, whereas before it was, oh, we knew this all the time. Now suddenly it's innocent until proven guilty in due process,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then, there are the people who, uh, you've got the people who, have been largely silent about other sexual misconduct, who suddenly are like, oh, look at this guy, this Republican from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a horrible person, and of course he did these terrible things. So there's some pretty rank hypocrisy on both political sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, I understand, the sort of, I understand, presumed innocence. At the same time, there's another sort of school of thought that I think is just as, you know, just as dangerous, and that is that that any accusation that's being made now is just a bandwagon accusation, and if they've waited more than a couple of years, they shouldn't be believed, and all of these people need to shut up and go away. Because frankly, uh, it takes something like the Me Too campaign, like, the snowball effect for people to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And I did share something, where, someone, and I want to say it was Richard Dreyfuss's son, basically seeing all these other people come forward gave him the courage to come forward.
Right.
And, when it comes to issues of molestation, rape, harassment, you do have these power dynamics
Mm-hmm.
that keep people quiet.
Right.
And when you're dealing with especially children, you have, issues of guilt and shame that keep them quiet. So where I see, I honestly have lost respect for some people that I see getting very, on their high horse about not believing any accusations until there's absolute proof.
The problem is that a lot of these things aren't exactly provable, especially since some of these things
Well,
occurred many years ago.
and see, therein lies the problem. Sexual misconduct allegations can rarely be proven,
Mm-hmm.
even when the accusation is made, in a
Recently.
timely manner, and when it's made directly following the event.
Mm-hmm.
So, for it's just I know that people who act like that have never had to deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and thank goodness they haven't, but they really need to shut up, um, because that kind of blaming and shaming is another reason why people don't speak up about those things. Um, it's hard enough to prove them, and then to know that people aren't going to believe you anyways. Why would you ever come forward? um, and I get it; it's easy to make an accusation, but the thing is, uh, people act like having an opinion about someone coming forward is the same thing as a person being held legally accountable for that action, and it's not. Um, you know, I think as many people as want to speak up need to speak up, um, because it's that action that will snowball down to the things that are happening now that are, that you can take legal action on. Now, if an accusation is made and it's absolutely false, the person who's being accused also has recourse.
Mm-hmm. Ow. Sorry.
So, it's not like that's a one-way street. I get the whole, it's a witch hunt mentality, and it kind of is, because you have, like I said, you have your hypocrites who don't really care about the victims, the accusations themselves. They want to see someone fall that they don't like. And so you have this willingness to believe it when it suits your purposes, and this unwillingness to hear it when it doesn't. And I don't think the answer to that is to tell everyone to shut up, because it's only by, sort of empowering victims that you actually catch the actual perpetrators and punish them. I was glad to see that Corey Feldman finally started naming names.
Mm-hmm.
And as with his case, a lot of these accusations that have been made, it's not something new. It's not bandwagon. It's just now finally someone might listen.
Right.
Because the accusations have been made before. He even named names before, but the police didn't want to listen to him. So, I think everyone needs to probably be less eager to speak their opinion about it, and give things time to wait for the dust to settle. Because in a lot of cases, you have situations where, essentially everybody knew, in such a way that it's been an open joke for years. And it should never have been a joke, but that was the only sort of outlet anyone had for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you see patterns, behavior that repeats over time. So when there's an accusation made, it carries a lot more weight. even if there's no physical evidence, there's no video evidence,
Right.
there's no whatever, that will prove something without a doubt. um, you know, Proving this kind of stuff is incredibly difficult. And it is the number one reason why most people don't speak up, because they cannot prove it. And they know that by speaking up, other people will, you know, blame them and shame them. And
Well, it's because they're putting themselves on the line, you know.
yeah.
And that's kind
So,
of, yeah, this whole controversy, like at first for me at least, it was really funny to watch the left being hoisted by its own petard again.
hmm,
But it's gotten a lot less funny, honestly. You know, it's gotten a lot less funny. It's gotten even a lot less satisfying because it's very troubling. You know, I mean, yeah, there's the whole open secret aspect of it, but it's like I feel like something else we have to also take into consideration with all of this. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying this to kind of detract from any of the accusations made or from the seriousness of them or anything. But part of the problem is that modern culture, you know, especially
mhm,
modern critical thought, I guess you could say, has definitely been defining down what constitutes sexual assault.
right,
And that I think also needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to these things. And it's made me a lot more cautious when it comes to it's made me more cautious when it comes to believing or even commenting on a lot of things. Just because
right.
it's like I'm starting to think like it's all well clearly I don't know enough. Like with Harvey Weinstein, I think that's pretty cut and dry, right? You know, I think it's pretty cut and dry with that.
Yeah.
You know, but with
And
almost
I mean, Kevin Spacey has a history of the same sort of actions, with the same uh, age group of, victim,
hmm
you know, um, and that's why I say it's important to recognize the patterns.
yeah, you got to see patterns to really be sure. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh
You
yeah,
are less amused by it,
yeah. I'm
because it's been defined down.
Yeah, because what constitutes sexual assault has been very defined down, and you know it's like you have these feminists running around all over the place, trying to claim that merely really awkward like passes somehow constitute sexual harassment. It's like no, dude just doesn't know how to flirt,
Right. Yeah.
and stuff like that though, and that's why I'm kind of like I think we ought to be like really. I think we should be really careful because because you've seen I've been you talk about witch hunts. It's like I've been the one calling it that. I've been the one. I'm sure you've seen been talking about that because the atmosphere really feels like it's kind of transformed. First it's like shedding light on this, but as time goes on and as more and more accusations daily keep coming forth, it's more. I'm not even saying actually that because of course the thing about a witch hunt is that it implies that that's not true because witches aren't real, quote unquote. Um, but the thing is that it's not even that whether or not these accusations are real or not. It's the atmosphere it's creating. Every single one of these could be real, and I still feel like it's create like the way it's happening is too dangerous. The way everything's coming out is too dangerous because it's creating sort of this almost demonization effect, you know?
I mean, with regards to Hollywood, it's almost like shaking a soda and having, all this pressure just under a cap. And as soon as, Weinstein was outed, it was like the cap just burst off and it all
hmm
came, you know.
I'm just I'm just saying like in the end it worries me, you know? Because I also don't want to see like innocent people get like hurt in all this either, you know?
Right.
It doesn't matter if I like them or not, it's like I just don't want to see them get hurt.
Well, and that's why we do have slander and libel laws.
Yeah.
If accusations are being made that harm a person and they're not true, there is recourse.
I just
You
think
know,
that in an environment like this, it's very easy. I think the risk here though is that, you know, slander and libel laws are all well and good. The problem is that it's already too late when you have to use them. You know, especially when you create an environment where you're saying, you know, that, especially when you're in an environment where everyone says all men are evil.
well, and I think that's another thing that we need to avoid. Not not necessarily. Let me explain. I see a tendency on the right with a lot of men to have a knee-jerk sort of, reaction, and you want to shut it down. Anything that they think is remotely feminist.
Hmm.
If it is helping, um, in their estimation, promote a feminist narrative or feminist ideals in any way, they are against it. And that's something that I'm seeing that concerns me as far as these accusations. Um, because, there's like this, it's the pendulum effect. It's the opposite end of the spectrum where, they demand proof. You cannot make an accusation without absolute proof. And, you're just a horrible person, and, you're a terrible liar and slanderer if you say anything. And, like I said, that's not how this works. Not with this, not with this kind of crime, not with these kind of victims. Um, and honestly, a lot more of this goes on than anyone wants to know about.
Hmm.
Um, if you're willing to listen to women in your life for, half an hour, you will hear a whole lot of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, from childhood on into adulthood, and, from all ages across the board, all colors. And I've said it before. I think it's, our porn culture, um,
Hmm.
because, it's become so mainstream, and no never means no, and, abusing your power is sexy.
Yep.
So this is what people have been consuming for decades, is, the idea that women are there for your sexual gratification. And um it like I said, it's decades and decades and decades of this. um and so it's definitely tricky. It's hard to prove. It's hard to even get a victim to speak up, honestly. And then when they do, you have these people who are telling them to shut up because, how dare you make an accusation after all this time? Or how dare you make an accusation without absolute proof? Um, so, you've got on one side of this, this kind of, it's like the culmination of the feminist narrative that, masculinity is inherently dangerous. And then on the other side of that, you've got this sort of knee-jerk anti-feminism that, that just wants it to go away. They want everyone to shut up about it so that, you know, they don't have to deal with it because it sounds like something that they oppose.
Mm-hmm.
And, then on either side of this, you've got your team players who are against it when it's levied against someone on their side, and they're all for it when it's levied against someone on the other side, and it's just muddying the waters.
Excuse me.
So, there is a kind of what's the word? It's almost like a fervor sort of I sent you that article.
Oh, that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
A frenzy. So it's almost like this frenzy of you know everyone wanting to get their accusation in while the topic's still hot or
Hmm.
whatever. Um, you know, and you do kind of have the witch hunt mentality amongst some of your sort of fringe feminists who are ready to rattle pitchforks and go demand justice for all the men folk for all the poor treatment,
Hmm.
which is stupid. Um, because by the same token, they'll ask men to support them in this endeavor. And if men are evil, why would you do that? Um, it's always some cognitive dissonance with this sort of stuff. Um, yeah, so I I really strongly dislike when right wingers want to immediately shut anything down if they think that it smacks of feminism or leftism or whatever ism that they don't like. Um, and I really despise feminism for, the way that it has attempted to emasculate men and, feed women a bunch of lies about, what they can and can't do.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, feminism has it's really worked hand in hand. Um, I should say, the more radical feminism has really sort of worked hand in hand with the pornification of culture to sort of create this perfect storm. Um, because they were all about, sexual freedom and expression and whatever, and you can you can really anyhow with their stupid slut walks and all this kind of crap, and how uh, objectifying oneself was empowering,
Hmm.
but then as soon as someone else objectifies them, suddenly they're victims, and so those things go hand in hand, and they have for decades,
I've never
and
understood that level of cognitive dissonance, incidentally.
you know you can't really feed this very sort of base beast uh, it, of the masculine sex, and you know um, and encourage everyone to be very open and loose,
Hmm.
and to discard their morals, and become very easy,
Yeah,
and then
it's you have
and
people
then
discard their morals and then expect them to uphold some sort of vague
right,
notion of morality. It's like,
yeah, you can't really expect them to be men of virtue who would do virtuous things for virtuous reasons if you encourage them to discard their morals. So, yeah, it's it's a mess. I don't see any sort of I think if we go too far one way or the other, we risk, becoming part of the problem. Yes, I think the victims should speak up, even if it's been 10, 20, 30 years. They should, you know, you you can't be controlled by someone else. And when you don't speak up out of fear for repercussions for what someone did to you, then you haven't fully owned your story. That's something that happened to you. You should be able to say that it happened to you.
Hmm.
At the same time, you know, you can't just do that to be relevant or to have your 15 minutes because, yes, people can sue you for that. And they should if you're just making accusations that have no basis in fact. Um, you know, I kind of think that, you know, a lot of this is going to die down and go away organically simply because the people that would most want to um, promote the narrative that, you know, of toxic masculinity and, you know, there being a sort of rash of horrible sexual misconduct against women. You know, really the ironic thing is that it's most of the people, you know, who have tried to use that politically as a weapon
Hmm.
are the ones being accused. So they're very invested in making it quiet down and go
Right.
away. You know, they'll be back to wearing their pussy hats and marching against Trump in no time at all. But in the meantime, you know, let's quietly settle all of these out of court and get back to business.
Hmm. All right. So we've already been running for a very long time, but we might as well just get a few other housekeeping things out of the way because why not? Um, so first of all, I've actually written things on the website. Two things in the past week.
Yes, you have.
Um, I decided to what was it? I decided to write a bit of a breakdown of a few things that were floating through my head last week.
Hmm.
You know, um, and this week, yesterday, in fact, I clicked on the wrong thing there. I decided to dissect a bit of a really stupid tweet I saw. So be sure to check out the website, the website. Be sure to check out the website for those. Um, Something else. What was I thinking of before I get to the other thing? Ah, yes. So what was it? 2 weekends ago was the Extra Life Game Day. I did not participate just because
You were working that day, weren't you?
yeah, I was working, and in general, I wasn't really planning on it anyway. Because again, I haven't really been feeling it. But I just wanted to point out that I retweeted something earlier that Extra Life has officially raised over $9.5 million.
Wow.
9.5 million. Think about that for a second. I think last year's haul, last year whatever. Last year though they may raised I think close to eight. I don't think they quite reached the 8 million mark. 9.5 million this year.
That's impressive.
Indeed. I'm quite happy for that. I'm quite happy that that's it. And it also seems like Extra Life is slowly becoming more and more widespread. I noticed that it got tweeted by people a lot more this year. Um, I know that a couple of Final Fantasy live streamers and YouTubers that I follow did Extra Life this year, and it's like, it's getting more attention. That's good, you know.
Good.
Um, and finally, I just wanted to bring up the idea of a live show. Because, of course, you have been telling me that people have been wondering if we're ever going to do that again. Um,
Yeah, there's a few people that, you know, they really want the live chat back. Um, you know, I will try to make that work if that's something that, our viewers want, really want. It's going to be difficult just because we don't always have a schedule where we can do these things.
Right. And frankly, in general, I just kind of wanted to address that because there's a few points about it that are worth mentioning. First of all, doing a live stream now, I think actually is a lot more practical because we could just use YouTube. We could have used YouTube for ages, but we can just use YouTube now because YouTube just has general streaming services now in order to because YouTube added this 2 years ago, I think, because they wanted to compete with Twitch. Twitch being cornering the market on gaming live streams, and YouTube wanted to make itself competitive in that field. And I think this is also why other services like Spreecast or Livestream are also faltering because the biggest video sharing site in the world, makes it easy to live stream to do these live streams now. Um, but so there's that. First of all, it technically would be easier. Not only that, but we can't use Livestream anymore because, as been previously mentioned, Livestream ended its free service back in August. So
Yeah.
we can't even utilize it anymore without paying money, and we're not paying money. Um,
I'm paying for too many other things right now. So,
exactly. We both are. Um, that being said, though, I wouldn't be adverse to occasionally hosting a live stream. I don't want to do it consistently anymore, though. As you said, part of the problem is that consistently scheduling is kind of difficult. It's gotten more difficult with time. And there's
mhm.
also the other problems where whenever we did have a live stream, you were this is not to slam you or anything, but you were always late, for instance. And elements like that also made it very difficult, I think, to make like a good quality show when we live streamed. Because there was too much unpredictability about it.
Yes.
I was more predictable overall, but that's because I'm a loser who doesn't do anything with his life. Um,
But you have housemates now, so things get a little
yeah,
you
they
have
can
to
get
have
a
people
little
come in and
they can get a
it's
little erratic at
much
times.
easier to edit that stuff out.
When I choose to, or when I can.
And I've got 3 kids, 3 cats, a dog, and a hamster. Uh,
But
it's just, yeah. So,
but there's that aspect to it. Is there's that there? There's trying that again. There's that. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm hitting, it's this. It's a sword. Um,
I like it.
it's in scabbard. You goof.
I like it.
Anyway, what was I saying?
I can do about things. I mean, swords. Oh my god. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, um,
I've been victimized by this show.
but there's another element too about live streams that I don't personally like in particular, and in general, it's just that because they are live, it requires like a whole different sort of, I guess, like skill set when it comes to like how you present yourself and how you act during it. You don't act
That's
this. What?
whoops. Yeah, I mean, totally different skill set. I've always been super professional when we were live.
Well, that's not quite what I mean. You could be as unprofessional as you like, whether recording or streaming live. What I'm saying though is that like you kind of need like a different mentality. And that's the reason I don't like doing live streams. I don't really have, at least personally, I really don't have that. I don't have that kind of persona or, that kind of gravitas, as you might say, to kind of to kind of carry like a live show as much as say when I'm doing a recorded show like I'm doing now, Because when I do a recorded show, it's much easier to just do, or record a YouTube video, whatever. It's much easier to kind of just focus in on what you're doing, what you're discussing, what you're playing, whatever it is. Whereas when you're live, you usually have some sort of chat. You're also making sure that, you have to make sure that the stream is still stable, because whatever can happen, and the stream can destabilize. And if you're not very good at like sort of multitasking or making sure that your brain can kind of follow multiple threads of thought at once, it can very easily get out of hand and get very, very stressful. And that's one of the reasons, and that's the major reason, rather, that I really don't like live streams too much, like doing them myself. It's because it's a different way of doing it. It's a different way of doing these things on the internet. They're not fundamentally different, but they are different, a recorded video versus a stream. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to deciding whether or not, we are going to do it here on Nerd Rage or whatever, As I was saying, I'm not adverse to doing shows periodically, but
Yeah.
At least for me personally, I'm not exactly keen on making it a habit either.
I think maybe if we do, add a special live stream from time to time,
Right, exactly. That's pretty much exactly what I'm
that
thinking.
would, hopefully satisfy people who want to see that or who miss the sort of camaraderie of, the chat um, I do understand that it is a lot of fun to get everybody together and
Yeah,
um, and have that instant feedback. It's just it, I would say, especially with our schedules, because I know you're not comfortable with doing a live show. I'm more comfortable with it because I'm fully aware that my life can turn into chaos at any
right,
given second. So I'm kind of always, working with several things going through my mind at once.
right.
Um, but it would still be a huge challenge with your work schedule, my work schedule, family schedule, all that kind of stuff. Sunday evenings would still be the best time for me, but then you're working a lot of times,
Hmm.
you know, and then the rest of the week it would change constantly. Like I wouldn't know when I would be here early enough to do a show during the week, and so it's just neither one of us has a consistent work schedule that we can do other stuff around. We have to do, you know,
Yeah.
we just have to fit stuff in where we can.
All right.
So yeah, occasional special live show, and if you don't show up, then you're a poo-poo head, and how dare you?
All right then.
Not
Well, I
really.
think that yes, you are. Don't listen to her.
Watching this
You are 100% a poo poo head.
uh,
So anyway, we want to thank you for watching this episode of Nerd Rage. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, um, leave a like and a comment down below. Be sure to subscribe for more. Also, check the links in the description below for links to all of our internet stuff.
stuff and things. Stuff and things.
We have a website, fullfrontalnerdery.net even, where, well, at least I occasionally write things. I don't know about you.
You know, I just told you what I was going to write about. It's like you read it. It was an audiobook version of the blog.
Anyway, you could also follow us on social media. We are, of course, both on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can follow Shannon at.
At Limbus_N_coffee, Limbus and Coffee on Instagram as well.
You can also follow me at Osser and Fire, OSERONPHAER, for kind of general
Gaming
weirdness.
stuff.
Yeah, more or less. And you can also follow me on a YouTube channel of the same name where I don't post anything anymore.
It's almost like you have a job or something.
And we will catch you next week for more nerdery, more shenanigans. Well, wait, not next week. We'll catch you whenever, rather. It's definitely not going to be next week. I work late for the next 6 days, and then I'm taking a trip to see my parents. So it definitely 100% will not be next week. So, anyway, thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Good night, everybody.
Bye. time to get more tea.
Oh yes, but sword.
Oh, it's so pretty, and it made such a wonderful sound when you took it out of the scabbard.
Yes, doesn't it?
It does. I want to see the hilt. Let me see the hilt.
It's not that sharp. It's not sharp or anything. So.
I like it. It's so cool.
Yep.
How long is it?
Um.
It's so shiny.
I am not very good at adjusting this. Looks like a foot and a half. And that's also, it looks so shiny just because the light's reflecting off of it. It's not like it's polished or anything.
I like it. I like it a lot. I do really like blades, though. It's kind of weird. I didn't, I've discovered this like in the last couple of years. Like, wow,
She said with a sadistic smile and glint in her eye.
I everybody's trying to get me into guns. Like, oh, you'll love it. You'll know all about guns in no time at all. It's like, I don't care. Tell me about knives.
It's like, can I just cut dudes? Is that fine?
I want to like hold it and caress it and throw it at something.
Yeah, so I realized though I hadn't shown this off yet. It's like, oh yeah, I should probably do
When
that.
did you get it?
Hmm?
When did you get it?
Last month, the Renaissance Fair. It was 100% an impulse buy. I'm like, oh, I have $60 in my wallet. This is only $55.
Oh, that's totally worth it. I've gotten all my kids' swords. They have, well, the youngest doesn't have like a large sword. She has two miniatures. Um, so she might have to get a katana. But I want to get myself a sword, and I think that's what I'm going to do when I go to the con in January. I think it's time to get myself a sword. Or a knife. They have some really nice knives, and they have some really sharp ones too. You're not supposed to keep those in the con. You're supposed to like leave them at the door and pick them up on your way out. But I mean, we're there all day, and we have like stuff. We put it in. But they're so much fun. It's a very nice broadsword.
What?
You get it resting on your shoulder.
It's a Celtic short sword.
I do. Hey, we kind of match. We kind of match tonight. How about that?
Huh, that's weird and creepy.
I'm
Maybe you
just
should,
change now. Say wear my clothes. Whatever.
maybe you should
Oh,
start reading my mind.
mm, you know, I wish I could. A dark and creepy place.
Trust me, if you read my mind, you'd run away screaming.
I've always wanted to be able to read minds.
I feel like it would, I feel like it's one of. I feel like reading mind reading would actually be one of those things that would end up being a curse, especially if you couldn't control it particularly well.
Mm. Like if you couldn't turn it off and not read someone's mind that was being
Yeah.
especially weird.
Mm-hmm. And then you just even when you were intending on doing it, you just occasionally just uncover like really dark secrets accidentally. It's like, wow, it's like wow, I really didn't need to know that about you.
Mm. It's not so much reading minds. Like I wish that I could sort of delve into someone's mind and pick out the bits that I want. But maybe that's creepy. I don't know.
I mean, I think the whole concept is kind of creepy. I mean, understandable and cool, but kind of creepy.
You know, I wanted like little mind tentacles in there and just get bits and pieces that interest me, and then shove the rest of it back in. You can keep that. There should be technology that lets me do this.